We also have a transformation called reflections. So consider input values or x values change signs on the left and the right-hand side of the y-axis. So if I change the sign of my x value, in other words, in my function notation, f of the opposite of x, it's going to reflect the graph over the y-axis. This is sometimes called a horizontal reflection. Also consider our output values, typically our y's, change signs above and below the x-axis. They're positive above and negative below. So if you change the sign of the entire output function, say the opposite of f of x, then it will reflect over the x-axis. And sometimes this is called a vertical reflection, because the graph of the picture will flip over the x-axis or reflect up and down. So let's consider these two examples below, where we're asked to graph a reflection. So in A, the graph itself is f of x, and we want to graph the opposite of f of x. In other words, we are going to graph the opposite of all of the y values. So that means all the x's will remain the same and our y's will be opposite. So I would focus on points where the graph really makes a change, like here at all the corners. Well, at -1, 0, the opposite of 0 is just 0. So that point's not going to switch. -2, though, that's a y value that we can switch down and make it a -2. 3, 1, the y value would become -1. And the y value at 5 will also become -1. So this graph, if we were to reflect it, looks like this in red. For f of -x, this means we're going to focus on changing the signs of all the x's. So again, we're going to focus on the same strategic points here where the graph changes direction. Now with our first point on the left, our x is -1, so we want to graph that x as a +1 across the y-axis. Second point, our y is 2, but our x is 0, so the opposite of 0 is still 0, he doesn't change. Our third point, our x is 3, so we're going to flip that same point over here to the left side at -3. And where x equals 5, we're going to reflect that point over here to -5. So the graph of f of the opposite of x will look like this. So notice how it just reflected across the y-axis.